Alright, welcome back to the channel. I fixed my mic situation, and yeah, so this channel is just for me to play around with things. If you like what I make, comment below and I'll make more of it. So Heat versus Celtics, a continuation of what has been an amazing playoff experience. On one side you have the Heat, a do-it-all team, rugged, dirty, Butler, a bunch of guys who aren't afraid to go dive for the ball. They neutralized the MVP and the defensive MVP, as well as the best regular season team. They neutralized them in 5 games. On the other side, you have the Celtics, who just coming off of a bloodbath with the Raptors, former champions, in which it went 7 games. A couple bounces, maybe if Anunoby doesn't hit that shot, and that game's only 4. That series only 4 to 5 games, but things happened the way they did, and the Celtics still managed to survive and move on. One of the main things I'm looking at in this series is switching, and especially off ball. For the Miami Heat, they experienced a lot of success against the Bucks doing these off-ball pick and rolls for people like Duncan Robinson and their shooters, Tyler Herro, and even on-ball pick and rolls. And this was due to the Bucks judiciously staying to protecting the paint. Every time during these drop coverages, the Bucks will just sink back, make their wall near the paint, and dare you to shoot time and time again. A bit of old school defense. And the Miami Heat had the personnel, offensively and defensively, but specifically with that off-ball switching, they had the personnel to attack this, right? And defensively, they were playing 4v5, really, with how they guarded Antetokounmpo. Everyone was near the box, everyone was sheltering him, but they still had especially the Bucks did them a favor by using Antetokounmpo in these pick and rolls, right? So they were able to guard multiple. They didn't really have to worry about that ball handler, as they were in that pick and roll action. They won't see. I don't anticipating them seeing as much success with that as they will in this against the Celtics, right? They don't play that way, and they have a coach who can adjust on the fly, and he adjusts off the fly all the time. And what we saw against the Raptors, and they will hedge. They play small. They play like they don't play 5 out like what the Rockets are doing, but they play pretty small. They have Daniel Theis starting at center. He might have some injury problems though, so I don't know exactly how they're gonna play to start out. But they will attack you, and they will force you to drive, and then they'll get their people to run and make that rotation. Not to say that the Heat won't have success, but it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. The next thing is like individual matchups for the Celtics. This really goes with the other ones. They match up, especially wings, on the wing aspect of this game. They match up really well. For Jimmy Butler, the people in the Bucks series who could really guard Jimmy Butler, it really stopped at Chris Middleton. You got Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart can guard any position. That's not really much of an overstatement. They got multiple wing defenders, especially if Gordon Hayward's coming back, who can guard their wings, guard Duncan Robinson, guard their guards, right? So it's going to be very interesting, and vice versa for the Heat, especially with their own Bam Adebayo and everything. Gordon Hayward coming back, that's going to be very interesting, right? What I see in Gordon Hayward is if he does come back, I don't expect him to be this offensive juggernaut from the beginning. I don't expect his best attribute to be his offensive game. I think the added versatility he adds to that defense, especially if he can play at the 4, going small, or play at the 2 or 3 if they're trying to go big against the Heat, that's going to be the biggest. It's yet another wing defender. And we saw the job Jaylen Brown did on the Raptors wings. Pascal Siakam, I don't know if he's not much of a offensive threat, but if you can allow Jaylen Brown to take some rest on some of these defensive possessions and for him to be more ripe for going the other way to the basket, that's a good situation for the Celtics to be in. And then vice versa, the next one is Brook Lopez versus Bam. Like Lopez on the Bucks is going back to that drop coverage thing that the Bucks did to the Heat. It wasn't really a good matchup offensively and defensively for the Bucks going against Bam Adebayo with Lopez starting at center. He is integral to their offense as he's pick and pop guy, and he plays some very good drop coverage defense. But Bam Adebayo was able to bring him out and able to make him respect his jumper. And defensively, Bam Adebayo, he's such a great defender. That's why this man is a jack of all trades. And so are we really going to see that in this series? I don't know. I think he can outplay. I think he can even maybe outmuscle Daniel Theis. It's going to be interesting on that base-to-base basis. Wow. So what the Celtics can do, they could try to force Bam to be the scorer. They could try to do what they did to Siakam and just force the Heat to give it to him down low, force the Heat to put it in his hands when the shot clock is getting low, and tell him, if you guys want to win the game, if you guys want to get some points on us, Bam has to be the one to drop 25. Bam has to be the one to drop 30. Much easier said than done, but they have the personnel to really try and do this. They can really hedge hard on the opposing teams, Miami Heat's wings, their guards, and force the inside pass. And when you have a person like Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown too, and then you're playing small, they can easily rotate to Bam. After they force that, they can switch, rotate to Bam, and make, the Celtics have a lot of things going for them on that front. And what I saw against the Raptors, right? Kemba. Game 6 and Game 7, Kemba wasn't really effective. And it's because the Raptors were giving him a box and one look. They were shadowing him the whole game, not letting him have any room to breathe. Every time he would touch the ball, there's at least two people around him. And it really got to Kemba. But the thing with Kemba though is I like what Brad Stevens did. They didn't look at that coverage and say, okay, Kemba, this is not your game. We're going to look to other people. They kept feeding him the ball. He kept looking to attack. And with his ball IQ, he just didn't shoot, which was wins for the Raptors, on those possessions. And it was also the best thing that could happen for the Celtics as well. And you saw in those late game situations, even with that box and one, even with him only having 2 points the whole game, he was still so dangerous. When he had the ball in his hand, the Celtics had to run at him to ensure he doesn't get anything down the stretch. We could see that with the Heat. We could really see that with the Heat. If the Heat go to that, it might not even be Kemba. They might box and one Jayson, but I don't really... Butler can hold his own there. Jayson might not have as effective of a match or a series with Jimmy B on him. But they could really run that back on Kemba again and really stifle their offense. This changes if Gordon Hayward comes in, and he comes in at even 80% of what he was from his the last time he was on the court. You get a very interesting turn of events right there. And another interesting thing to look for is zone. Now, this has really bewildered me up until this point. During the regular season, pre-pandemic, pre-corona, the Heat led the league in zone usage. They were the staple of zone usage. They would slide in and out of zone so seamlessly. 2 possessions, you're in tight man-to-man coverage. The next 3 possessions, you're in a 1-3-1 zone or a 2-3 zone, right? It really got into their opponent's head. They haven't used it once, from what I've seen. They haven't used it one time. And the Pacers, they had the Pacers first round, they had the Bucks second round. Not really much of a reason to use it. watch for the zone in this series. The zone, they can really get some things going with that zone, man. And if they do go to that zone, that's gonna be so interesting to watch for. The Celtics have a lot of shooters. They have a lot of people who can take you off the dribble, which is actually something I have down in my notes as a plus for the Celtics. Their ball handling. But a 1-3-1 zone could really affect them. And yeah, going back, the Celtics are not the Bucks. They are not the Pacers in so many ways, as they have ball handlers. I believe everyone except the center, especially if Gordon Hayward comes back, everyone can handle the ball, take it to the cup, or create off a pick and roll. No one is going to be stationary. No one needs to be a catch and shoot. No one's going to be relegated to a catch and shoot person, or relegated to the post, or relegated as a pick and roll man. No one except Dice, really, except their 5 guy. That's an opponent the Heat haven't really played up until this point in the playoff. It's going to be very interesting to see. I mean, the Heat, you can't be as good of a defensive team as the Heat are if you don't have great individual defenders. But I still think that's going to give them real challenges. And my question for the Heat would be, you're not going to really have these off-ball looks. You're going to have a lot of offense being thrown at you every possession down, as you have a different person who can handle the rock at a different time. My question to the Heat would be, who would your second scorer be, man? Who would your actually primary scorer be in this situation? Who's your primary offense? Will you run the offense through Bam? Will you look for the off-ball picks that you had against the Bucks? Maybe it could work, man. I'm just here anticipating it not working. And Jimmy Butler, his main thing really is an offense. He can go get it down the stretch. He can obviously hit his shots. But it's going to be interesting to see which avenue they get their offense from in this series, because you're not getting that drop coverage. You have a plethora of individual defenders on the Celtics. It's going to be interesting to see that. And my question for the Celtics is, I don't know. Right, so when I'm coming to this, my prediction for this, originally when I was doing this, I had the Heat versus the Celtics. Not the Heat, the Bucks versus the Celtics in the conference finals, with the Bucks winning and going to the finals. Yes. Yeah. I thought. I'll tackle this in another video, but it's so weird to see the Bucks not being successful. It's very weird to see. A lot of these times when you have that driving player, you have a player who's elite, maybe even historic, going to the paint. Number one thing, surround them with shooters. The Bucks have not missed a beat on that avenue. They have shooters on from 1 to 5. They have shooters on their roster. But what's clear that they're actually missing, which, you don't see this as a missing piece of a contending team too much. Because it's usually a given. You're not even considered contending unless you have this piece, which is ball handlers, shot creators, playmakers. Besides Chris Middleton, besides Bledsoe on a very hot game, they don't have people who can handle the rock, which is why letting Malcolm Brogdon go was, in hindsight, very detrimental mistake, man. But they don't have a lot of people who can handle the rock. They don't want to give that responsibility to Giannis full time, and that's what separates him from LeBron, man. Besides the shooting too, LeBron can be your number one offensive valve. He can take over your whole offense, and just do everything from pick and roll. So Giannis isn't there yet. The Bucks certainly seem to think he's better off setting picks and getting the ball on the roll than he is taking it from half court, driving and kicking to the shooters. Very interesting on that. But if I had to pick, I would go with the Celtics in 6 or 7, man. I really like their ball handling. I think it's going to be a very different challenge for the Heat. But this game can go either way. This series can go either way. And something's telling me to pick the Heat. Because in the playoffs, you have Eric Spoelstra. You have this culture of defense, and I love that. And I love that, man. That team is hungrier, and so are the Celtics. But the Celtics are no doubt more talented. But this is one of the things where it comes to this heart matter over talent and definitely execution. I think Eric Spoelstra is a great playoff coach. Brad Stevens is one of the best. You know, he just needs to get to that championship, that ever-elusive championship. But yeah, that's been a 15-minute talk. If you made it here, I love you, man. And I'll see y'all soon.